Okay, I'm recording. Recording in progress, I hear in my ear.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, yeah, everyone, well, thank you for clicking on this video. As you've probably seen from the thumbnail, this is going to be a Criterion Roundtable with three of my favorite YouTubers in the sort of the Blue Tube community. We have Nathan Jones, Chris Mohan, and Elliot Coen. And yeah, this video is just going to be sort of a roundtable discussion, nothing scripted, more of just like a bit of back and forth on choosing some Criterion films that we'd like to recommend to people that we watched recently that we really enjoyed. And then also picking a film that isn't in the Criterion collection that we would really love to get the treatment. And yeah, that's just going to be the conversation today, guys. So I will, I'll go first if that's okay, seeing as I'm sort of the host mediator. This, as I'm talking about this, so keep this as casual as possible. This sort of video was inspired by the Hollywood Reporter videos. I don't know if any of you guys have seen those.
Yeah, the roundtables.
Yeah, so I binged those really hard, about a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, and apart from the fact that I can't stand the guy who mediates those videos.
Hey, I'm going to cut you off real quick, Sam. I know you're going about something, but I'm going to ask you something else.
It's okay.
No.
But he just, I won't mention the guy by the name, but he likes to think that he's asked the most introspective questions that has ever been asked like a celebrity before. But anyway, I digress.
We've lost a viewer already.
So I've got three picks here in front of me, but I think I'm going to talk about something I have discussed a little bit before, but it's not Mirror. So don't worry about that, because I've talked about that film to death. But I'm going to talk about a film that came out in 1999, and it's directed by French director Claire Denis, and it is Beau Travail. So of the three of you joining me today, how many of you seen this film?
Well, this one was actually my pile here as well.
Sorry about that.
No, because I've picked too many here, so I'm happy for you to take this one.
Have you seen it, Nathan?
No, I haven't. I still have it on the shelf.
And what about you, Chris?
And me too. Seen some other Claire Denis films, so maybe we'll have some.
Okay, so we've got two here that have seen it and two that haven't seen it. So this will be sort of more of a recommendation to you guys, even though you've got the disc, but you haven't watched them yet. Yeah. So Claire Denis' Beau Travail is when I saw it, I think I saw it about 3, 4, 5 months ago. Time is a bit of a blur at the minute with my life going on. Loving every minute of it, but it's a bit chaotic at the minute. But yeah, this film is sort of like a retelling of Herman Melville's story called Billy Budd Sailor. And it's sort of transported into the French Foreign Legion, in which a bunch of people in the French Foreign Legion are in. I can't remember what African country it is. I can't remember if you can remember, Elliot.
No, I can't remember. No.
Djibouti.
Right.
That's where they are.
I'd never remember that.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, but it's somewhere in Africa, basically. And the film very much is a story of a jealousy. And there's a lot of homoerotic undertones here, and it's extremely gorgeously shot. Like I would probably put this in amongst like the top 25 films that I've ever seen, that in terms of its cinematography and the way the shots are constructed, it's just utterly beautiful. And yeah, I just wanted to highlight this to anyone who hasn't seen it, to please pick this up and watch it. Or if you're in America and you have access to the Criterion channel and it's on there, give it a stream, see what you think of it, because it is truly it's probably my favorite film of the 90s now that I think about it. And it has an incredible soundtrack, including some classical music and some contemporary pop songs from the time in which it came out. There's without spoiling anything, there's a very famous sort of like pop dance track that's played towards the end of the song. I'm sure Elliot knows exactly what I'm on about. Yeah. And yeah, so I won't talk any more about Beau Travail, but I'm sure Elliot can back up everything that I've just said about this film. But any viewers watching this if you're interested in French cinema or anything that's very poetic, because this film there isn't a huge amount of dialogue in this. It's very much show, don't tell type of storytelling. And I am utterly in love with this film. And I hope that me talking about this, anyone watching it will be sort of convinced to give this a go, because I absolutely love it. And it's one of my favorite things that the Criterion Collection have put out in recent years. So that is my pick for a recommendation for everybody. So yes. Any thoughts on that, Elliot, as you've seen the film?
Yeah, what I'd say, you mentioned the cinematography, which is quite famous about the film. A lot of people liken what Claire Denis and the cinematographer were doing in this film to Terrence Malick's films in how it kind of looks and just kind of is very poetic. I think you said that, but yeah, I think it's a great film. I picked up, I won't use this as my pick, but
no, it's
just
okay.
very, very briefly, I'll just hog the stage for a minute. Because I know, Sam, you love double bills. So one film that I think is a great double bill with Beau Travail, although a very different film, is Black Narcissus from Alan Pressburger.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm saying this is because Beau Travail is about this group of men who are living remotely. So they're not really surrounded by many people. And it explores their masculinity. And on the flip side of that, you could say it's about their repressed femininity, which is very much what Black Narcissus is about, because this is about a group of nuns who are on mission in the Himalayan mountains, and it's all about their femininity being repressed because they're nuns, basically. So I think this is a great double bill with that, but I don't know if you'd agree, if you've seen that at all.
I have. I would say that would be a great little double feature for a Let's Watch 2 podcast episode, maybe at some point in the future.
Yeah, I wanted to set you up for that.
Very good. So you're just pitching the idea to me. I see. Who wants to go next for their pick? Nathan, go on then. You're sitting to the left of me on my screen, so you go next.
So I would really, I guess I'm going to go along with what you're talking about with a more of a modern release that came out recently, and so this one was just recently added to the collection, but came out in 2003, and it's probably one of the most famous films that has come out so far, under the lineup of the Criterion releases. But I'm talking about Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. Can't talk. But I had just saw this for the first time not that long ago, and obviously coming off the previous year with Parasite, and really just the accolades that you're seeing that Bong Joon-ho has deserved for a long time, at least internationally. I think this was ripe for a release, and this was just an incredible film about these detectives from this really, really small remote town, and a serial killer that actually existed in real life that this is based off of, and them just trying to figure out what the heck is going on and why all these young women are getting killed off. And there's moments of comedy in this film, which are in a way almost, I feel like, cultural, just based on just the type of humor that exists. Because obviously it's a very serious film. It's a thriller. You're trying to figure out who this killer is, but it also talks a lot about just ways of life that exist outside of this, I guess, more of something that doesn't really you wouldn't expect to happen in the society, especially outside in this remote place. But there's a lot of other things going on with it. But I need to rewatch it again. Of course, I've only seen it once, so I can't speak on it. I'm sure all of you have seen this movie, but I just really loved it from the opening shot to the ending shot, of course, because it's nice. It's a nice ribbon of a film that closes in together in a really, really great way. And I think it's I know we mentioned a little bit about cinematography. The cinematography in this is just absolutely wonderful as well, and it's just kind of crazy. What is this? His second film that he made? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
Don't.
I want to say it is, but I don't actually know. 'cause I've
Barking
not
Dogs
seen
Never
his first
Bite.
one.
Barking Dogs
Yeah.
Never Bite is his first film. I
So
can't
this might be his
remember.
second.
I think it's his second or third film. If there is another one after Barking Dogs Don't Bite, I don't know. I can't remember what it is. But yeah.
But just to see how early this is and how wonderful, and you can tell how he would, obviously later on make masterful films since then, is just a sign of a good director and a sign of a good storyteller. And that's exactly what this is. It's a really great story, and it really influenced a lot of other, a new wave of Korean cinema, and then also a lot of films that would come over here in the States, and I think it would influence a lot. And I'm glad that it's finally treated correctly. And it's got a really great 4K scan here. This is my first pick, Memories of Murder.
Awesome. So I'm just going to interject here. Me and my good friend below me on the screen here, Elliot, we did a podcast on the Sight and Sound poll that comes out every decade. And I was just going to throw it out to the group. Like, do you think that any of Bong Joon-ho's films will make the Sight and Sound poll next year?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd say
No.
for sure.
I could see it. Yeah.
Would you say Parasite would make that, or would you say, because Memories of Murder is highly regarded by a lot of people?
Maybe this one more.
Yeah.
Probably this one.
Yeah, I think the Sight and Sound poll seems to eschew an awful lot of, especially modern, what are released as classics or well celebrated films, and then over time sort of fade away. You can look at any amount of Oscar winners to see that happen. So I think Memories of Murder is probably the one that comes to the forefront there as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout.
Yeah.
And I think I said this when we did that podcast, Sam, that I think the next list that's coming out next year might have a more of a youthful spirit about the choices that people are making, because you got to remember that in the last 10 years, a lot of people will have passed away who would have contributed to the last list. And there'll be a lot more new directors who might have been invited to contribute. So I'm excited just to see what happens. But I think there is going to be a lot of more popular modern films getting a look in, because I think last time was the newest film Mulholland Drive that was in the list.
Correct. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, cool. I thought I'd just throw that out there. So, Chris, do you want to give us the recommendation?
I'll go next. I'll go stick with the original brief of trying to stick to this year, and I'll go for a Russian film.
Oh,
so I'm going to go for The Ascent by Narcissus.
Oh,
has anybody seen The Ascent?
Yes.
Yes.
No, this is one I've not seen. No.
Right.
No.
Okay. So Larissa Shepard, being the wife of Alan Klimov, who obviously ended up going on to make Come and See, is another war film. So it's set around the middle to the end of World War II, where some resistance fighters basically go off to find supplies for the group, and we follow them on what is essentially a road movie, even though it's kind of on foot for the most part. Of they travel through villages and places, and then, without spoiling too much, ended up in captivity at some stage. And about kind of the role of the two men, I think, actually, because you see one as an alpha male and one as a sub alpha. I think in the group, and actually it challenges your perceptions of what masculinity, I think, is, and what spirituality kind of puts all those things together. So it kind of takes you on as much as a journey around the white landscape, it takes you on a journey of the person and what you think. And there are lots and lots of what would I say, religious imagery used throughout it. In fact, it was one of the things that was criticized for most, and it was kind of overtly one of the male leads, I think, was cast because he looked an awful lot like the classic representation of Jesus, for instance. So there's a lot in here, and it's as affecting as any war film you'll make, which is kind of interesting considering the husband and wife relationship there, and how Come and See is kind of seen by a lot of people.
Bit of a bleak double feature with Come and See.
This is another idea.
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough double bill, that one.
Yeah, I don't think I want to sit through that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Come
both
and
films
listen
are fantastic.
to The Ascent.
But it's some of the nice things actually to talk about some of the extras on it. There's an interview with their son, Anton Klimov, who talks about what it was like growing up with the two of them, because Larissa died quite young, etc.
Laugh every day.
I'm sure, yeah, and the kind of influence that cinema had in their lives, and then up subsequently his. But the kind, as you say, the very bleak outlook on war and cinema that they both portrayed, I'm sure was challenging at times as they were going through the motions of making those films.
Yeah, both very passionate directors about their subject material, of course. But yeah, it's fantastic. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend getting it. Yeah. So are you finished there, Chris?
Yes, that's me done from a pick.
Awesome.
Indeed.
Awesome. So that just leaves one member left. So if you want to take a stab at a recommendation, Elliot.
Yeah, sure. So there's this little film here called Barry Lyndon. No, I'm
I
kidding,
knew
I'm kidding.
it.
I'm joking.
I knew you was going to have
joking.
some sort...
No, I'm joking. I'm gonna stick with the criteria of films that have been released this year.
Yeah.
From Criterion. So I've chosen The Parallax View. This is from Alan J. Is it Alan J. Pakula or Pakula? I never know.
Pakula, I think.
Pakula. Okay. Alan J. Pakula. And this is, it's the story of this senator who is, at the start of the film, a senator is assassinated. And this reporter, played by Warren Beatty, witnesses this. And then he notices that other people who were there at the scene of the crime start getting killed as well. And he becomes very paranoid and tries to work out what's going on. And it's one of those great 1970s American paranoid thrillers, basically. And I watched this for the first time with this disc. And yeah, it was just a great addition to the collection because I'd seen All the President's Men and Clute, which is also in the collection as well. So yeah, with those films, it makes a great trilogy of, paranoid thrillers, basically. But what about you guys? Do you like this film? I'm guessing
I've not seen it. I haven't seen it. No, I've seen Clute, which I think is amazing, but I've been meaning to pick up The Parallax View. It doesn't have the UK release yet, I don't think. So I was holding off until there was like a Barnes and Noble sale and I could get something shipped over to me. But yeah, it's definitely on my radar. And I've heard a few people like Robert Bellissimo. He has a podcast and YouTube channel and he talked about it and rates it as a really, really good 70s film. And as you guys know, 70s is my favorite decade. So I need to consume as much 70s cinema as possible because it's what I live for. So yeah. Oh, fun. Any of you guys seen the film either?
I haven't.
I've seen it now. But look at it, Clute and All the President's Men. As great as the central performances are in all of those movies, it's the character actors that I think really add the flavor to all of those things. Like in Parallax View, his reporter boss that's in it is like this nice central character of every time the story moves along, return to him, to kind of pull everything together. And I think Parallax View is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like conspiracy sort of things. Makes me think about real world conspiracies.
And
not that I buy into a lot of them.
The 1970s was like a great period for that kind of filmmaking as well, because obviously it was reflected in, what was happening in the news at the time and everything. So the amount of great thrillers that were made in that decade is just amazing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you all watch Spotlight when it came out a few years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, Spotlight.
Yeah, that was the catalyst for me to watch All President's Men, and then I watched that, and then I have Clute on my shelf, and I also have The Parallax View on my shelf, but I need to get back into my paranoid viewing. Conspiracy theories.
Cool, awesome. Right, we rattled through those quite quickly, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go through a. I've got two picks here and I don't know which one to talk about. So for the viewers out there, we're now going to discuss a film that we love, that we really desperately want to see get the Criterion treatment for one reason or another. And yeah, I'm not going to go first this time. I think we should go in reverse order. So Elliot, you can go first in this time and then we'll go back round to me to finish up. So no pressure. So go on then.
Because I literally got a massive stack.
He's going to pick Barry Lyndon again.
4K.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not my camera.
I think it's coming.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to pick one that I literally just watched yesterday for the first time. It's actually a David Lynch film. So, Sam,
I think I know what this is.
I know what this is too. Yeah,
it's The Straight Story. Yeah, which I watched on this German Blu-ray.
I have that German Blu-ray.
And this isn't part of the Criterion Collection yet because I believe it has rights that are wrapped up with Disney, and Disney are notoriously, quite, I don't know what you'd say, tight-fisted with their properties in terms of, licensing them out to other labels to release and stuff like that. But yeah, I saw it for the first time yesterday, and it was just so heartwarming and totally unlike anything David Lynch has made, I think. Although at times you feel like it could very easily just turn into Blue Velvet or Twin Peaks, Yeah. Because it still has that kind of touch in the dialogue and stuff like that. But yeah, sadly, because of the rights, even this Blu-ray does not look that great. I think it's from a dated DVD master, basically.
It's funny you should mention about the Blu-ray. Sorry to cut you off there, but I think, hasn't it got a release from imprint recently?
It has, but I believe that
is it the same
master.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because the thing with imprint, and they're a great label in terms of the stuff they put out, but they don't do any restoration work in-house.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically what they can get their hands on. They just released that. So I think it is just going to look the same as this one, basically.
Okay.
They usually do HD quality, right? Too.
Yeah.
With their
Yeah. So, but they do add special features and stuff on their disc. So I'm sure a lot more people will pick that up. But yeah, it's just a shame that it's not been restored or anything like that. So fingers crossed one day. So that's on my wish list now after watching it yesterday. Because it's just totally touching and heartwarming. And
it is. It got me misty-eyed. So
yeah, because it has that Harry Dean Stanton is in like the last scene at the end. It's just it's great.
Amazing. Great pick. I mean, I watched that for the first time a couple of years ago when I was like really in my David Lynch sort of obsession, which I don't think I've ever come out of, to be honest. But
you're deeper in it now.
Yeah, it's just a well of, I don't know what to call it. It's just, he's a genius and a madman. And anyway, but yeah, Straight Story is very unlike anything that he has ever made and probably will ever make again. As you said, it's a Disney project that he was like, yeah, I really want to make this. This is the story that I want to tell, and it doesn't have any of the. Occasionally, as you did mention, there are some moments where you think, oh, this could turn into something different, but I think you think that because you know what David Lynch's filmography is like. I don't think if you didn't know what David Lynch had made in the past and you watched this completely blind and didn't know, I don't think you would suspect that this film could just go off the deep end, So it's definitely his filmography impacts like where you think the film might go, but it's definitely quirky. I mean, a guy traveling halfway across the country on a lawnmower to see his brother is quite an interesting tale. And if David Lynch maybe was in a bit more of a kooky mindset when he made it, he could have made it into something completely bizarre and wacky, but I'm glad that it's the way it is. It's an outlier in David Lynch's career, but not in terms of it being like a poor film, because I think it's one of his best films. And yeah, it's very, very good. Have any of you guys seen The Straight Story?
No, but the title suggests that it's exactly what he's trying to aim for.
Yeah.
So
I think it's actually based on a real story or something that actually happened. A guy tried to cross America on his lawnmower, basically. That's what it's about.
Sounds like what we would do here.
Yeah.
What, in
What's
the
that,
middle
12
of America?
states?
Yeah.
Very good. Cool.
And actually, this might infuriate you, Sam. I actually think this might be my favorite David Lynch film.
It doesn't infuriate me.
I've only seen it once, and I love Mulholland Drive, which is your favorite film.
It is.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. Just yesterday watching this, it just really touched me. So
it's okay.
Yeah.
No, but I know a lot of people who love David Lynch, and they say that's their favorite David Lynch film. But yeah, I haven't, apart from Mulholland Drive, I haven't watched like David Lynch's filmography in a while, probably the last, like 2 or 3 years ago was the last time I sat down and like paid proper attention to his films. So I do need to go through them again. But and maybe The Straight Story would rank quite highly up amongst those. But it's definitely it's really, really good. Like if you want to cry, I mean, watch The Straight Story. Basically, I mean, yeah, it's certainly tugs on the heartstrings. And what's I can't remember what the main leader is. It Richard Farnsworth or something like that? Is that his name? I can't remember. But his performance is so understated and so natural and realistic. Is it Richard Farnsworth? Yeah. He's amazing in it.
Sissy Spacek plays his daughter. She's great in it as well. So yeah.
So highly recommend that to everyone. So yeah, as we're going counterclockwise this time, Chris, if you want to, you said before we went and recorded this that no one is going to be able to guess what your pick is here. So
yeah, well, I just think in general I have a tendency to pick off the wall kind of things, and I like how you didn't take the bait there that Elliot set you up for. I thought you were going to bite back, but at least give it a week before you declared the best David Lynch film. I'm going to go for. I tried to pick actually something that hasn't had a proper boutique Blu-ray release. So while it might have been released in America, we've got other labels here. So I went for what is released here in Artificial Eye, Francois Ozon's France. If anybody's seen it.
I've not seen this.
No,
right, so it's ostensibly a love story. It tells the story of a woman who is waiting on her lover to come home from war. I'm sensing a thing in the pics here, but she finds out that he has been killed, and that a friend of his is coming standing over his grave, and that's basically where the film starts. Now, I don't know if you've seen many Ozon films. I kind of think they're shot really beautifully. And this one's shot mostly monochrome the whole way through, except for a couple of key points within the film, which he steps out a bit, which kind of adds to it. But I just kind of was caught up in this maelstrom of how beautiful the movie looked, kind of beautiful the themes, and actually how it kept going along. And as I often say, like these Artificial Eye of these more modern pieces of European cinema are often where a lot of really great films are languishing, if you know what I mean, in terms of releases for us to see. And they're always only a couple of pounds here as well, which is also very nice for ourselves.
Yeah, so they're cheap in the UK. You can pick them up like on the secondary market for £5 or £6. Some of them, it's fantastic.
So yeah, that's that, and some great performances, but probably not from people that are well known, I suppose, to us, because that kind of modern European film tends to not translate across to Hollywood very much.
What year did this film come out?
That's a good question. 2000 and something. I did have it pulled up here, did I? No, 2016.
Okay. Yeah, I've not even heard of that film. Completely blind spot for me. So it was definitely one of those films that when you finished watching it and resolved, you just had this warm emotional glow, let's say, of endearment towards it that you sometimes get. This was links quite nicely with the Straight Story as well, because I'm sure that was a similar kind of feeling that Elliot was describing.
I'm just actually looking up to see if I've seen any of his films. He made that one, is it Potiche, with Catherine Deneuve?
Oh,
where the English translation is called Trophy Wife. Came out in 2010.
I haven't seen that.
I think I remember seeing a trailer for that when I went to the cinema at one point. It's got another famous French actor in it. He's got like quite a large guy. Do you know who I'm on about?
Gerard Depardieu.
That's it. Yeah. I'm aware of that film, but I've not seen it.
Yeah.
But
I remember the trailer.
Aside from that, it's like a blind spot. I've not seen any of his films, I don't think, apart from that.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Chris.
Yeah.
So, Nathan?
Here we go. So as the only American here, I have to pick a Western, right? So I decided to go with a more modern film. I guess it's a little bit old now, just because we're in the 2020s. But from 2007, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite films during this time period, which came out around the same time as There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men, but The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Yeah, we're all nodding our heads here.
Andrew Dominic. right here. This 160-minute beautiful film shot by Roger Deakins, of course, with music by Warren Ellis and Nick Cave. And it's got really great performances by, of course, Jesse James, who's played by Brad Pitt, who is where I'm from, Springfield, Missouri. That's where he is born and raised. But we also have Casey Affleck, who is Robert Ford. And it's like the last little bits of years in Jesse James's life. And Jesse James is a really famous American outlaw here in, especially in the Midwest area where I'm from. And yeah, it's just more or less, it's a tale of, you know, a dwindling reputation, a realistic look at a person who is more of a legend than the real, you know, like man himself. This mythos and mythology that has been kind of crafted around him. And then he's also dwindling in his trust, and it really kind of looks at friendships and, you know, the amount of people that you over the years, like who can you trust, and also who is really looking out for your best interests. And so it's a beautiful film. It's narrated by Hugh Ross, who hasn't really done much. I looked it up a little bit earlier, but he narrated The Age of Adeline, which I know was a romance film that came out not too long after this. But yeah, this is just I was able to watch this at a local independent theater here where I live on the big screen, and I was just immersed. I mean, I've already seen it a few times prior to it, but I absolutely love this movie. And this is for that year, you know, There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men. I mean, that was like a revitalization of westerns in a way, and I think this is the most underrated one of the bunch, and it's one that's not really seen much. And I think it would be nice to see this treatment from any of the boutique labels, really. But I would like to see Criterion do it, but you know, who knows?
Cool. It's a film I have a sort of personal link with. It was the film the day before that my wife was due to be taken in to give birth to my first daughter, that we passed the night with, as we were waiting, you know, in hope that maybe we'll just have to get up and go, you know, lift the bags from the door and go. But no, we went for the time, so maybe I was a bit distracted. I need to watch it again, because I don't think I was able to give it as much attention as as maybe thought.
Well, that movie's all in the name. It's like that patience, like, so that actually fits with what's going on in your life at that moment. It's like, just, it's time. It's like what you know, something's gonna happen, right? But just like when.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that film, especially the music, because Nick Cave, I haven't seen it in probably, I don't know, 10 years. I don't think I've not seen that film, but like, I think is Nick Cave is in the film towards the end, isn't he? He's in the bar and he's like playing a song on. I can't remember too much about the plot, but I just remember how it looks. Like there's scenes where like there's corn blowing in the wind, which is very like
the opening shot,
Days of Heaven and stuff like that. But it's glorious. So I remember it's very memorable in terms of its cinematography. So I do need to revisit that film. But maybe the Criterion will put it out. It's like a perfect film, I think, to go into it, because it's, as you said, it's not as talked about as much. I mean, there are people that have seen it, but it's not like, people don't like look back on that and go, oh, that's an amazing film too often in like people who in film communities and people that talk about film a lot. Not many people bring that up as a recommendation, I see. So thanks for bringing that one up, because I love that film, but I've not seen it in a while and I want to revisit it. I don't even think I own it. I think I had like a what are they called, media book version of it on DVD. And then years ago I basically sort of went down the route of selling all my DVDs because I was a bit of a snob and thought Blu-ray's the only thing I want to have in my collection. And now I regret that, because there are some films that haven't got Blu-ray releases, and I don't know if they ever will. I do have a very small collection of DVDs in this room of films that I love that still haven't got a Blu-ray release at all. So, but anyway, love that film. Awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, I think it would be a great fit for the Criterion Collection, because this was another film that I had in my pile to talk about earlier. It's very much like The Gunfighter with Gregory Peck, which is basically, to give you a brief synopsis, Gregory Peck plays this cowboy who is larger than life. Like, he is a celebrity, everyone knows him, but no one really approaches him because he's, you know, larger than life essentially. And it's all about him coming to terms with being this celebrity, and also knowing that he always has a target on his head, because everyone wants to be the person that kills his character in that film. So again, another double bill for you, Sam. Great fuel for the podcast.
Making a mental note of all these double features. So yeah, it's finding the time to record them. So at the minute, but I'm definitely keen for talking about those features that we've discussed in this video so far. Awesome. Right, I've got 2 picks here. Which one do I go with? Do I go with this one or this one? I'm going to talk about this one. Okay, so this is in my top 10 films of all time. So Elliot might know what this one is, because we've had a discussion about our top 10 films of all time on the podcast before. And it's a horror film of sorts. And I always butcher this director's name, but it's from 1981. It's directed by Andrzej Zulawski, and the film is called Possession. From the nods, has everyone seen this film?
I haven't.
I haven't, but I when you were saying the name, I was like, I know exactly what
I knew who it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Elliot, you've seen it, haven't you?
Oh yeah, it's a great film. Yeah, and such a provocative cover on the Blu-ray as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get censored for putting that up on the screen on my YouTube video, but it'll be fine.
I promise that's not why I bought it, just for the cover.
At least initially.
Yes. I won't be holding up the cover for the remainder of me talking about this film. So,
what possessed you to do that?
There's always one, isn't there?
That's low hanging.
I teach.
I guess you got to have a load of those up your sleeve, haven't you?
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Possession. This film, it was actually banned in the UK. It was regarded as a video nasty, even though it had a lot of critical acclaim. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival. Isabelle Adjani won Best Actress at the festival for her performance, and I have to say it's in probably my top 10 performances of all time. It's one of the reasons why I keep coming back to this film, is just her performance is so hypnotic and off the wall in places. But to try and sort of give a plot synopsis, a couple living is it East Germany or West Germany based? They're in Berlin. And the Berlin Wall is featured in the film. And this couple are going through a lot of marital troubles. And also Sam Neill is in this film. He plays the husband, and he is a sort of international spy. And his wife, played by Isabelle Adjani, is sort of like acting very strangely, and she's like going off, and he suspects that she's having an affair. And this film, from beyond that description, is very difficult to try and describe exactly what this film is, because it's very much at times like a mood piece, an atmosphere, and you sort of conjure your own interpretation from the images that are shown you. But the reason why I can sort of understand why the UK banned this film, because there are a few quite distressing scenes in this film. Maybe not by today's standards. I mean, it's still shocking, but I don't think it probably deserved to be banned. But I really want this to get an accessible and affordable 4K disc, really, and maybe the Criterion Collection would do that. But just I want more information about the making of this film, because I know that the director at the time was like going through a divorce, which very much influenced the dynamic between this couple in having like a lot of marital problems. And yeah, I truly love Possession. It's in my top 10 films of all time. It's probably my favorite horror film. It is my favorite horror film of all time. And I heartily recommend it to people that want to come away from a film at the end of it thinking, what did I just watch? And what did it mean? And what did Isabelle Adjani need to conjure in her mind to give the performance that she did at certain points in the film. I'm sure Elliot might know a certain scene in like a subway. Yeah. It's a very memorable scene. Yeah, it's very, very, very good, and it's probably the thing that I want most to come to the Criterion Collection because it's amazing. Yeah. Do you have any more thoughts on that, Elliot? I think you're the only other person to have seen it.
No, I basically echo all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of Isabella Gianni's performance, like you say, I don't know how someone even gives a performance like that. And in many ways, it reminds me of Shelley Duvall in The Shining. And obviously, she was under great duress giving that performance. And, it's questionable whether that was ethically right or not. I don't know if the same was with Possession, but yeah, just a really good performance. Good isn't even the right word. It's just unique, I'd say.
Yes. Because a lot of people, it is highly regarded. Like audiences like it, critics like it, but there are, as with every film, there are people that don't like certain aspects of it, and they like to say that the performances in it are like over the top and outlandish, and not, it takes them out of the experience. But for me, that's part of why it works, because it's meant to be sort of like not like a Greek tragedy, but something like that. It's meant to be very theatrical and as if it was performed on stage, and where you had to overact because you had to reach, people in who were further away that couldn't see you. So you had to like be more like, you'd be louder and more aggressive and just overact slightly so you got your message across. And even though this is a film, they still perform in that manner. Both Sam Neill and Isabella Gianni, like, they overact. It's not really overacting. They're being told to, by the director to give a performance in a certain way. And some people may construe it as being like a poor performance, but it isn't, at least in my opinion, because I absolutely love the performances.
On that note, something that I really hate that people give as in terms of a criticism of any film these days is that the performance isn't realistic, as if realism is needed in every film ever. I mean, take any David Lynch film. Those performances aren't realistic necessarily. Or, take something like Star Wars. They're not realistic performances. It's just all about what it makes you feel. Does it serve the purpose? Take any melodrama film.
Oh, exactly.
No. Yeah. They work because the performances aren't realistic. They fit, the style or the vibe of the film. So when people say a film's rubbish because the performances aren't realistic, I don't know.
I agree. No, I haven't. I put this one as one of my maybes to talk about today. But no one would like a John Waters film if they liked only realistic performances.
Yeah,
that's real. It happens. Not too far away.
Like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
but that's a great point, because there's a lot of genres that are, I suppose, are much maligned, but that have certain types of performances that sit within them, like Drama, you said, action movies, sci-fi movies, all of those have their own kind of styles and their own types of characters that need certain viewpoints and ways to look at them. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, this has been fun. I think we'll have one more thing. I don't know whether I'll it's been talked about quite a lot actually in the community, but I haven't actually spoken to anyone about it in person because no one I know collects Blu-rays or even knows what the Criterion Collection is. So I just wanted to throw the conversation piece out there about Criterion moving into 4K, and if that's something you're interested in. I know it's been covered on our channels a little bit, but just to have a collective sort of discussion about any of the films in their back catalogue that hasn't already been announced that you would like to maybe get the 4K treatment moving forward.
So don't do that.
Don't, if you show Barry Lyndon one more time. I would love Barry Lyndon to get a 4K from Criterion.
Yeah, we would love that.
Yeah. So anyone's thoughts on it? Like, are you super over the moon, or are you just like, it's something like?
I think they're really interested in the way that they're approaching it, in so far as that they're only going to provide a 4K scan of a disc, and the other for some of the releases anyway, some of them, piano's just been announced or otherwise, which is different, but it kind of opens up the possibility. So Mulholland Drive being a very good example. I'd say everybody here probably owns the Criterion of Mulholland Drive already. Yeah.
Yep.
So they're just going to release this basically with an additional disc of the 4K. And we here are getting the Studio Canal release with New York and all the rest of it. It nearly encourages us to buy that alternate version of Mulholland Drive because it'll have a different set of extras. And it'll have a different set of artwork that goes with it. There'll be different merits to that rather than just the Criterion disc. So I think that's really interesting kind of way to look at it. And I wonder if it was a conscious decision, with which, because it doesn't look like Menace Society is going to be released in the UK. It doesn't look like they're going to even attempt to release the 4K discs in the UK.
I don't think so.
There. So
yeah, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, no, sorry.
I was going to say, I just know, I'll bring up some examples that I just pulled from the shelf, but I know you just mentioned Studio Canal because, they obviously stuff like Ron and, even more recent stuff like what Arrow's been doing. Like I have Trimmers right here. And then in the States, we have Scream Factory doing really, really wonderful releases as well. It's an interesting thing to think about with how all the other labels seem to, it's almost more natural, I feel like, for them to step into this world, whereas like there's that expectation with Criterion for over the last few years. Really, everyone was asking when is this going to happen? And I feel like it's almost like I think they had a plan going into it, just a little bit, but I feel like it's almost like an afterthought because everyone else is doing this thing, and it feels like the other labels seem to be doing a little bit better job of at least treating it and adding more features to what they're going to be presenting you. Like for instance, I'll just go off the Scream Factory edition, which has the 4K disc itself with a new scan, a new Dolby Atmos track, and new commentary. But it also has the Blu-ray disc with it, and a lot of the content from the previous Scream Factory edition. But it has new things to add to it, plus artwork, and it comes in a nice hardcover. So
it also has this is something that Scream Factory have done on these releases. I believe they've kept it. They've included a Blu-ray disc of the original color timing.
They do,
which
yeah.
I think that is amazing. Like because they've changed the way the film looks for this 4K, but they still have a reference for how it's looked on previous releases, and they've included that in the release. Right. And I think that's amazing because films are being changed the way they look. On my Mirror review I did for the Criterion release, I'd compared it to the Curzon Artificial Eye disc, which I still think is a fantastic disc, but the film does look different. Like there's no denying it. You put two stills from it next to side by side, and there's a distinctive difference in how the film looks. And I think it's interesting, and I think it's fantastic that Scream Factory have released the new 4K disc, which has got a different color grading and everything like that. But then they've also included how it originally looked before they changed how they want it to be, presented to everybody. Obviously there's a cost in that because you've got to manufacture more discs and putting it out, and I don't think the Criterion Collection are going to do that. But if a boutique label or any company are able to do that, I think that's fantastic for just like film preservation and looking at just looking for reference purposes about film changing. It's like amazing. I think it's great that
might as well add that
on that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. I was going to say on that point that Criterion have always been about film preservation. Well, that's something they've always kind of had in their motto or their company statement, essentially. It is strange that they are releasing films where the color has been changed so much. And yes, it may be at the wishes of the director and the director of photography, but surely there is some importance in preserving how the films were originally seen by everyone. Because I know that with the Wong Kar-wai box set that came out, which was very controversial, the film In the Mood for Love was seen by many people for the first time on the old Criterion DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So to many people, that is how the film looks, how the film should look to them. So then with this new version where it's all green and a bit colder and all this, yes, the filmmakers want it to look that way, but now that old Blu-ray and DVD is going to go out of print, and it'll soon be very hard to find the older version. So it's a tricky thing, you know, because you know sometimes it's like, can you argue with the original artist? But then at what point is the art finished? You know, should an artist just let the art go out into the world and not try to change it afterwards? Because the same thing happened with Memories of Murder. You know, that disc looks a lot greener than the older Blu-rays and DVDs. So yeah, it's just I don't know what the answer is.
No,
Include
include the previous color timing in the release, so you have both copies. But as I said, it's not feasible for companies to manufacture that, and they'll probably be at a loss for doing it. But that's the only answer I can think of. But it's just not feasible for these companies to include previous versions of the scan in with a new release, I don't think. But
if I was to link it to the music, because obviously remasters are a thing that happens quite a lot, music have done over the past, there is the option, because file formats, etc., are still accessible, you know, decades and generations going back, that people have access to the older ones. So maybe the fact that in Mid for Love, for instance, has a release at the moment is fine, but what happens in 10 years' time? Because it'll not be there. And normally what happens when you publish art is that the audience takes ownership of that art in some way. So they decide what is the best version of something rather than the director or the DOP, like is happening with film. So it is interesting that maybe Criterion just get them on board with the promise of doing the work, get them involved in the release, because they give them back ownership of that, and maybe that's their way in. And that's how this happens, probably more so than a music or anything else.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a tricky discussion. Yeah. An interesting one for sure.
Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your Sundays to sit down and just have a chat. I mean, yeah, it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed it. Hopefully we could do this again, maybe in the new year. Just chat about some more recommendations and another pick of a film that we'd like to enter the Criterion Collection. And who knows, maybe there would have been an announcement by the time we record another video that maybe one of our picks will be making the Criterion Collection. That would be fantastic for us to talk about. So yeah, thanks for joining me, everyone. To all the viewers out there, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and leave a comment down below about any films that you would recommend, or any films that you absolutely love that you would really enjoy to get the Criterion treatment. So until next time, everybody, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.